Hello and welcome to K News. This is Hardik Trivedi. Let's have a look on what is happening in India and in the world. The Chinese army suffered 35 casualties during the violent clash with the Indian military in eastern Ladakh's Galwan Valley. Official sources said on Wednesday, quoting US intelligence reports. The figure could be a combination of total number of soldiers killed and seriously wounded. The Indian Army on Tuesday said 20 army personnel, including a colonel, were killed on Monday night in the biggest ever military confrontation between the two armies in over 5 decades. China has not yet talked about the number of casualties suffered by the People Liberation Army during the clash. Government sources on Tuesday said the Chinese side suffered proportionate casualties, but it does not have a clear picture about the number of Chinese soldiers killed as well as those injured in the clash. On Wednesday, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh reviewed the overall situation in eastern Ladakh with Chief of Defense Staff General Bipin Rawat and 3 services chiefs. Last night, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a meeting with the Defense Minister as well as Home Minister Amit Shah, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and Army Chief General M.M. Narawane on the situation in the region. Monday's clash was the biggest confrontation between the two militaries after their 1967 clashes in Nathula, when India lost around 80 soldiers, while over 300 Chinese army personnel were killed in the confrontation. The External Affairs Ministry on Tuesday said the violent face-off between armies of India and China in eastern Ladakh was the result of an attempt by the Chinese side to unilaterally change the status quo in the region. The ministry said both sides suffered casualties that could have been avoided had the agreement arrived earlier at the higher level been scrupulously followed by the Chinese side. India is expected to register a comfortable victory in the Security Council elections on Wednesday that will bring the country to the UN high table as non-permanent member for the 2021-22 term. The 193-member UN General Assembly will hold elections for President of the 75th session of the Assembly, 5 non-permanent members of the Security Council and members of the Economic and Social Council under special voting arrangements put in place at the UN headquarters due to COVID-19 related restrictions. India is all set to join the powerful 15-nation Security Council as a non-permanent member. India is candidate for a non-permanent seat from the Asia-Pacific category for the term. India's victory is certain since it is the sole candidate for the lone seat from the grouping. New Delhi's candidature was unanimously endorsed by the 55-member Asia-Pacific grouping. India, including China and Pakistan, in June last year. President of the UN General Assembly, Tijani Muhammad Bande, on Monday circulated a letter to member states with the names of candidates for the various elections. For the 2 vacant seats from among the African and Asia Pacific states, 3 candidates have been communicated, namely Djibouti, India and Kenya. Of those 3 candidates, India and Kenya are endorsed candidates. For the 1 vacant seat from among the Latin American and Caribbean states, 1 endorsed candidate has been communicated, that is Mexico. For the 2 vacant seats from among the Western European and other states, 3 candidates have been communicated, namely Canada, Ireland and Norway. Each year, the General Assembly elects 5 non-permanent members for a 2-year term. To be elected to the Council, candidate countries need a 2/3 majority of ballots of member states that are present and voting in the Assembly. Ahead of the elections, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar outlined New Delhi's priorities for its candidature to the Council. Termed as norms, India's focus will be new orientation for a reformed multilateral system. The Supreme Court on Wednesday asked the centre to issue directions to the states for payment of salaries and providing necessary quarantine facilities to doctors and healthcare workers engaged in treating COVID-19 patients. The government told the court it would issue the necessary directions. A bench of Justices Ashok Bhushan, S.K. Kaul and M.R. Shah said that doctors and healthcare workers treating COVID-19 patients should not be denied quarantine facilities. The top court asked the centre to file a compliance report within 4 weeks on payment of salaries and quarantine facilities to doctors and healthcare workers and warned that non-compliance would be viewed seriously. The bench was hearing a plea filed by a private doctor raising questions on the centre's May 15 decision that 14-day quarantine was not mandatory for doctors. Dr. Arushi Jain in her petition had alleged that frontline healthcare workers engaged in first against COVID-19 are not being paid salaries or their wages are being cut or delayed. During the hearing, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, appearing for the centre, said that government would issue the directions to the states and union territories within 24 hours to ensure timely payment of salaries to doctors and healthcare workers. He said that the May 15 circular on standard operating procedure will also be modified and do away the clause for non-mandatory quarantine for healthcare workers engaged in COVID duty. Mehta also gave the assurance that a new order would be issued for providing suitable alternate accommodation for doctors and healthcare workers engaged in COVID duty to avoid risk to their family members. He said that centre is also thinking to make non-payment of salaries by hospitals to healthcare workers a criminal offence under the National Disaster Management Act. The bench said that necessary directions be issued by Union Health Secretary and Chief Secretaries of the state. On June 12, the top court had observed, in a war you do not make soldiers unhappy. Travel extra mile and channel some extra money to address their grievances. The Gujarat High Court on Tuesday granted 2 weeks' time to the President of Gujarat High Court Advocates Association, Yatin Oza, to file a reply on suo motu criminal contempt notice issued against him. The division bench of Justice Sonia Gokani and Justice N.V. Anjaria allowed Yatin Oza to file his reply on affidavit in another 2 weeks on a criminal contempt notice issued by it over his remark on June 6, calling the court a gambling den and an institute which caters only to litigants with means and money power, smugglers and traitors. Oza's lawyer Kruti Shah sought time from the court to file a reply to the affidavit, which is granted, keeping the matter for hearing on July 1st. The High Court had last week slapped the criminal contempt notice against Oza, a senior lawyer, for making the remarks during a live press conference on Facebook. The court called his remark extremely unfortunate and absolutely unpalatable and said he made false and contemptuous allegations of corruption malpractices against the administration of the High Court. The HC observed that Oza called it for a gambling den to spread sensationalism and slapped him with notice for criminal contempt under Section 2C and 15 of the Contempt of Courts Act. The court said Oza's remark was scurrilous. These remarks appears to have been made without any substantive basis and without any intent to know the truth, as also without approaching the Honorable Chief Justice for any inquiry as the head of the institution. Bar president has, by his scandalous expressions and indiscriminate as well as baseless attempt to cause serious damage to the prestige and majesty of the High Court and thereby of independent judiciary, has also attempted to lower the image of entire administration and also created demoralizing effect among the administrative wing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called an all-party meeting on Friday to discuss the situation at the India-China border after clashes in Ladakh in which 20 Indian soldiers laid down their lives. Presidents of various political parties will participate in the meeting at 5 p.m. on Friday via video, the Prime Minister's office said. Army sources have told that up to 45 Chinese soldiers have been killed or injured in the fight at Galwan Valley in eastern Ladakh. There were casualties on both sides. After confirming the death of 3 soldiers, including a colonel, on Tuesday morning, the army added that 17 more critically injured soldiers were exposed to sub-zero temperatures and died of their injuries. The army has said Indian and Chinese troops have disengaged in the area. China also said Wednesday it wanted to avoid more clashes. We of course don't wish to see more clashes, Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said at a press conference, while urging India to avoid provocative gestures that could complicate the border situation. Monday's clash, a severe escalation after weeks of tension along the border with China, erupted when a small Indian petrol party moved to remove a Chinese tent in the Galwan River Valley at 15,000 feet. China had agreed to remove the tent after talks between Lieutenant General ranked officers of both sides on June 6. The incident involved no shooting but violent hand-to-hand scuffles. The soldiers threw punches and stones at each other, and the Chinese troops allegedly used rods and nail-studded clubs during the fight that lasted for hours until midnight on Monday, according to reports. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi launched a sharp attack on PM Modi in a tweet this morning, questioning why he hadn't spoken for the huge incident till now. Why is the PM silent? Why is he hiding? We need to know what has happened. How dare China kill our soldiers? How dare they take our land? Mr. Gandhi had tweeted. He also posted a video paying tribute to the Indian soldiers who died in the line of duty and asked PM Modi to come out and tell the truth. While the Congress has been the loudest in its attacks, other parties like Shiv Sena, Trinamool Congress and Janata Dal Secular have also targeted the government. When will China get a strong reply? 20 soldiers were killed without a shot being fired. What have we done? Tweeted Shiv Sena leader Sanjay Raut. Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Moitra wondered whether it would be anti-national to seek answers from the government. Incredible how BJP won 2019 by tom-tomming surgical strikes, of which we never saw any actual proof, and now that 20 real faces of our dead soldiers stare at us, the PM is silent, Moitra tweeted. India blamed the clashes on an attempt by unilaterally change in the status quo there, rebutting China's claims that Indian soldiers crossed the border. It's time for a short break. We'll join you in a short while.
Vesavi avtundi fan with the cooler number one. Ika chesko more fun unte cooler number one. Ika don't run from the sun unte Kelta number one. घर जैसे कोई सपना सुहाना, मैं दीवाना दीवाना।
कचारिया टाइम्स, जो देखे वो दीवाना।
Welcome back to K News and thank you for watching. Let's continue the streak of news. Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav has called for cancellation of contracts awarded to Chinese companies as part of an economic reply to China. In addition to the strategic response for the killing 20 Indian soldiers at the line of actual control in Ladakh's Galwan Valley on Monday, Akhilesh's call on Wednesday follows similar demands by some other groups, including RSS-linked Swadeshi Jagran Manch, whose members protested outside the Chinese embassy earlier today. Government should not only give strategic but also an economic reply. Contracts awarded to Chinese companies should be suspended with immediate effect. Restrain imports from China. Samajwadi Party will support the government in any such endeavor for the country's sake, Akhilesh Yadav tweeted in Hindi on Wednesday. Akhilesh's suggestion comes close on the heels of demand by the SJM to oust Shanghai Tunnel Engineering Company Limited, a Chinese company, from the project to build the underground stretch of the Delhi-Meerut RRTS corridor. STEC has emerged as the lowest bidder for the project, and the government clarified on Wednesday that the part of the project was funded by the Asian Development Bank and it was obligated to not discriminate between companies or countries. 5 bidders submitted bids and qualified for financial bid opening. STEC emerged as lowest bidder. The tender is under process and yet to be finalized. P1 note that the ADB, World Bank or multilateral procurement guidelines do not allow discrimination among firms or countries. A government press release clarified. A news agency reported that protesters in Varanasi burned Chinese flag and effigy of Chinese President Xi Jinping, and said that similar protests were also in Patna and Gujarat. The boycott Chinese goods sentiment has surfaced in India from time to time, and it witnessed a surge recently when innovator and education reformist Sonam Wangchuk posted a video last month asking Indians to shun all Chinese products, including the popular mobile application TikTok, in response to the Ladakh standoff. The S&P BSE Sensex and NSE Nifty 50 indexes ended Wednesday's volatile session on a weak note as banking, FMCG, metal and financial services shares came under selling pressure. The benchmarks switched direction over 10 times during the session. The Sensex moved in a range of 600 points and the Nifty 50 index touched an intraday high of 10,003 and a low of 9,833. India VIX, the gauge of expected volatility, rose 1.5% to 33.47. The Sensex ended 97 points or 0.29% lower at 33,507, and the Nifty 50 index fell 0.33% or 33 points to close at 9,881. 6 of 11 sector gauges complied by the National Stock Exchange ended lower by the Nifty Financial Services Index's 0.8% fall. Nifty Bank, FMCG, Metal, Private Bank and PSU Bank indexes also fell around 0.5%. On the other hand, Nifty Media Index was top gainer, up 1.7%. Mid and small cap shares ended higher as Nifty Mid Cap 100 Index rose 0.1% and Nifty Small Cap 100 Index advanced 0.5%. Bharti Infratel was top Nifty loser. The stock fell 4.5% to close at Rs 206. Kotak Mahindra, ITC, Shree Cement, Bajaj Finserv, Vedanta and HDFC also fell between 1.5 to 2.3%. On the flip side, Maruti Suzuki was top gainer. The stock climbed 4% to end at Rs 5,725. Bharti Airtel, Wipro, Britannia, IndusInd Bank were also among the gainers. The overall market breadth was positive as 1400 shares ended higher, while 1100 closed lower on the BSE. TikTok star turned BJP leader Sonali Phogat was arrested and granted bail by a court in Hisar 12 days after she thrashed Market Committee Secretary Sultan Singh with a sleeper in full public view during a visit to Balasamand Grain Market. Sources in the Criminal Investigation Department of Haryana Police confirmed that Phogat was arrested for the June 5 assault on the public servant and produced before a court that granted her bail. A case was registered against her on Sultan Singh's complaint under Section 147, 149, 186, 332, 353 and 506 of the Indian Penal Code. The 40-year-old BJP leader was caught on camera slapping and thrashing Sultan Singh. The video clip was widely shared on social media. In her complaint to the police, she said the official made indecent remarks against her. Sultan Singh lodged a counter complaint against Phogat, denying that he had passed any indecent remark. Rather, he accused her for beating him up on the pretext that he had opposed her during last year's assembly elections, which he had lost to Congress leader Kuldeep Bishnoi from Adampur in Hisar district. Bishnoi is the younger son of former Chief Minister Bhajan Lal. A temple believed to be 500 years old has been found in the Mahanadi river in Odisha. The temple was submerged during floods in 1933, say researchers, with the river changing its course due to flooding over 100 years ago. An entire village and the temple were submerged at Nayagad. An archaeology survey team of the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage said that they discovered the temple recently after its tip partly surfaced. This temple has a very old history. It is around 450 to 500 years old. The idol from this temple has been taken to another temple. We are working on a project documenting the Mahanadi Valley. So we were looking for this temple. Around a week ago, we were informed that the upper part of the temple is visible, INTSCH Chief Anil Kumar Dheer told. According to Mr. Dheer, the main deity of the Odisha temple is of Lord Gopinath, an avatar of Vishnu. The temple is in good state and it should be re-established as we have the technology. This is not the first submerged temple that has been found by us, said the INTSCH chief. Locals say around 11 years ago, the temple top was first seen above the water level, and since then researchers have been tracking it. The construction style of the mastak or temple top and the building material used indicate that the 55 to 60 feet temple dates back to the late 15th or early 16th century. Mr. Dheer said there are around 65 temples in the area that are underwater, but only the mastak of the Gopinath temple was visible for some years as it was the tallest. Petrol price on Wednesday was hiked by 55 paise per litre and diesel by 60 paise a litre, marking the 11th consecutive day of increase in rates that now totals Rs 6 for petrol and Rs 6.4 for diesel. Petrol price in Delhi was hiked to Rs 77.28 per litre from Rs 76.73, while diesel rates were increased to rupees 75.79 a litre from rupees 75.19, according to a price notification of state oil marketing companies. Rates have been increased across the country and vary from state to state depending on the incidence of local sales tax or VAT. This is the 11th straight day of increase in rates since oil companies on June 7 restarted revising prices in line with cost after ending an 82-day hiatus in rate revision. The freeze in rates was imposed in mid-March, soon after the government hiked excise duty on petrol and diesel to shore up additional finances. Oil PSUs, Indian Oil Corporation, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited and Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited, instead of passing on the excise duty hikes to consumers, adjusted them against the fall in the retail rates that was warranted because of fall in international oil prices. In 11 hikes, petrol price has gone up by rupees 6 per litre and diesel by rupees 6.4 a litre. That's all for now. Keep watching K News. This is Hardik Trivedi taking your leave. Be alert, be positive, be safe.